Marcus Chen stood in his backyard at 3 a.m., sledgehammer in hand, watching $80,000 worth of custom-built paradise crumble into rubble. The HOA had given him an ultimatum: pay $500 a day or remove the pool. They thought they'd broken him. They had no idea they'd just awakened something far more dangerous than their petty power games. A man with nothing left to lose and an engineering degree who knew exactly how to make their lives a living hell. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, delivered with the kind of bureaucratic precision that Marcus Chen had come to associate with the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. He stood in his kitchen, coffee growing, cold in his hand, reading the same paragraph for the third time. Violation notice number WB202-41847. Unauthorized pool installation in violation of architectural guidelines. Section 12.3.4. Daily fine of $500. Begins October 15, 2024. Pool must be removed within 30 days, or face legal action and potential lien placement. The paper trembled slightly in his grip, not from fear, from rage. Marcus walked to his back door and stared out at the pool that had consumed his savings, his weekends, and nearly his marriage over the past 8 months. The infinity edge caught the morning light perfectly, creating that seamless horizon effect he'd dreamed about since buying the house 3 years ago. The natural stone coping matched the house's foundation exactly. The automated chemical system hummed quietly in its disguised housing. Every detail had been planned, researched, and executed with the obsessive precision of a man who'd spent 15 years as a structural engineer before starting his own consulting firm. Unauthorized, he muttered, crumpling the letter. Unauthorized. My ass. His phone buzzed. Sarah, his wife, texting from her conference in Denver. How bad? He'd sent her a photo of the letter 20 minutes ago. She'd been dreading this moment as much as he had. $500 a day, he typed back. Starting tomorrow. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, we knew this was a possibility. Maybe it's time too. Marcus didn't finish reading. He pocketed the phone and walked outside, his bare feet finding the familiar path around the pool's perimeter. The water was crystal clear, heated to exactly 82 degrees. The LED lighting system he'd installed could cycle through 16 million colors. The infinity edge created a perfect mirror of the sky. It was, objectively, the most beautiful thing he'd ever built. The sound of a car door slamming made him look up. Across the low fence that separated his property from the Hendersons, his neighbor Bob was getting out of his Tesla, wearing the expression of a man attending a funeral. Marcus, Bob called, approaching the fence with obvious reluctance. Heard about the letter. News travels fast in paradise, Marcus replied, not bothering to hide his bitterness. Bob Henderson was a good neighbor, the kind who brought in your packages and never complained about noise. He was also, unfortunately, a member of the HOA board. The conflict had been eating at him for months. Look, I voted against this, Bob said quietly, but Patricia and the others, ... They're not going to back down. The architectural committee specifically rejected pools in this section when the development was planned. The CC and RS are clear. Marcus turned to face him fully. The CC and RS, written in 1998. Before climate change made Arizona unlivable for months a year. Before property values tripled and people started treating their backyards like outdoor living rooms instead of decoration. I know, but the rules. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about rules, Bob? Let's talk about how Patricia Chuno relation, despite the name, built her gazebo 3 feet into the setback area. Or how the Johnstons added that second-story deck without a single architectural review. Or how Mrs. Kellerman's garden shed is bigger than most people's first apartments. Bob's shoulders sagged. Those were different circumstances. Different circumstances were different people. The question hung in the air between them like a blade. Tell me, Bob, how many of those violations resulted in $500 a day fines? Bob couldn't meet his eyes. They both knew the answer. Marcus had moved to Willowbrook Estates because it was supposed to be different, a planned community where the rules applied equally, where the architecture mattered, where property values were protected by thoughtful design standards rather than arbitrary prejudice. He'd read every page of the covenant's conditions and restrictions before signing. He'd attended HOA meetings. He'd even volunteered for the landscape committee during his first year. The pool had been his mistake, not the construction that had been flawless. His mistake had been believing that following the technical requirements would be enough. He'd pulled all the necessary city permits. He'd hired licensed contractors. He'd installed the required safety features. He'd even submitted preliminary plans to the architectural committee, though they'd never responded. What he hadn't anticipated was the politics. Patricia Whitman had been HOA president for 7 years, ruling Willowbrook Estates with the iron fist of someone who'd never held real power anywhere else. She was 63, recently divorced, and had moved to Arizona from Connecticut with a chip on her shoulder about West Coast attitudes and people who think rules don't apply to them. She'd taken one look at Marcus Chen's infinity pool and seen everything she despised about modern America: excess, entitlement, and the audacity of someone who looked different, thinking they could change the character of her neighborhood. The war had started subtly. First, anonymous complaints about construction noiseaways filed just after permitted hours, never during. Then questions about his contractor's licenses, forcing him to provide documentation he'd already submitted. Then surprise inspections by city officials who'd received concerned citizen reports about possible code violations. Marcus had weathered it all, believing that completing the project would end the harassment. The pool spoke for itself. It was architectural art, not suburban ostentation. The infinity edge created the illusion that his backyard extended into the desert preserve beyond. The natural materials blended seamlessly with the landscape. Even his harshest critics had to admit it was beautiful. Beautiful, but unauthorized. "There has to be something we can do," Bob said, his voice strained. "Some kind of compromise." Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through his calculator app. $500 a day is $182,500 a year. More than my mortgage. More than Sarah's salary. He looked up at Bob. What exactly would a compromise look like? They want it gone. Bob, complete removal. They've made that clear. Maybe if you talked to Patricia directly. I tried that 6 months ago. She told me that people like me needed to learn that America has rules. Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. People like me, Bob? What do you think she meant by that? Bob winced. He knew exactly what she'd meant. The sliding door behind Marcus opened, and his daughter Emma stepped out. At 16, she had her mother's delicate features and her father's engineering mind, a combination that made her both brilliant and devastatingly direct. "Dad," she said, "you might want to see this." She handed him her phone. The screen showed the Willowbrook Estates Facebook page, where Patricia Whitman had posted a lengthy status update 2 hours ago. Some residents seem to think the rules don't apply to them, building unauthorized structures and then crying discrimination when they're held accountable. The architectural guidelines exist to protect our property values, not just the people who think they're special. Rules are rules, period. The post had 67 likes and 43 comments, ranging from supportive "thank you, Patricia, for keeping our neighborhood beautiful," to concerned "maybe we should consider updating the pool policy," to a few that made Marcus's jaw clench with their casual bigotry. Emma was watching his face carefully. "There's more," she said. She swiped to the comments, highlighting one from Patricia herself. "This isn't about pools. It's about respect for community standards and American values. Some people come here thinking they can change everything to suit their preferences. Well, this is still America, and in America, we follow the law." Marcus handed the phone back to his daughter and walked to the edge of his pool. The afternoon sun turned the water into liquid gold. In the distance, the mountains rose like ancient guardians, indifferent to human pettiness. "Dad," Emma's voice was smaller now, "are we going to lose the house?" The question hit him like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on the principle, on the injustice, that he hadn't fully calculated the arithmetic of destruction. $500 a day, compounding indefinitely. Interest and penalties. Legal fees. The cost of actually removing the pool once they inevitably lost the fight. Sarah's consulting business was thriving, but not $182,500 a year thriving. His own firm was doing well, but not well enough to throw away 6 figures on a matter of principle. They had Emma's college fund to protect Sarah's medical bills from her surgery last year, the mortgage on a house they'd stretched to afford because they'd believed in the dream of Willowbrook Estates. "No, sweetheart," he said, turning to face his daughter. "We're not going to lose the house." But as he said it, he realized he'd made a decision. Not the decision everyone expected, not the decision a reasonable man would make. He pulled out his phone and opened his contacts, scrolling until he found the number for Jake Morrison. The first sledgehammer blow fell at 6:01 a.m. on October 16th, exactly 1 minute after the Willowbrook Estates noise ordinance lifted. Marcus had been awake since 3 a.m., preparing coffee, protein bar, safety gear, and a carefully planned sequence of destruction that would take the beautiful infinity pool apart like a surgeon dissecting a body. The sound echoed across the quiet neighborhood like a gunshot. Emma appeared at the sliding door in her pajamas, phone already recording. "Dad, the neighbors are welcome to watch," Marcus said, hefting the 20-pound sledge again. In fact, I'm counting on it. He'd spent the pre-dawn hours setting up. Work lights illuminated the pool area like a movie set. A professional camera on a tripod captured every angle. Jake Morrison's crew had delivered a dumpster, pneumatic tools, and enough safety equipment to demolish a small building. Most importantly, they'd brought the Permit City permits for debris removal, environmental permits for concrete disposal, even a permit for the temporary construction fence that now surrounded his property. Every permit the HOA had never required him to obtain. The second blow cracked the decorative tile along the pool's edge. Hand-imported Italian glass in shades of blue and green that had taken Sarah 3 months to select. Each tile had cost $47. There were 2,847 of them. Marcus had done the math. He always did the math. By 6:30, windows were opening throughout Willowbrook Estates. By 7 o'clock, Patricia Whitman was standing at her front gate, still in her bathrobe, shouting across the street. "This is completely unacceptable. The noise ordinance begins at 6 a.m., Marcus called back, not pausing in his work. "I've got the city code right here if you'd like to review it." Jake Morrison, a bear of a man with arms like tree trunks, was using a concrete saw to cut through the pool's coping. The high-pitched whine of the diamond blade added a mechanical scream to the percussion of Marcus's sledgehammer. "You can't just destroy property like this." Patricia's voice was shrill with outrage. "There are procedures, environmental reviews." Marcus straightened, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the October chill. "You're absolutely right. There are procedures." He pulled a thick folder from his workbench and held it up. Environmental impact assessment filed with the county. Debris disposal plan approved by Waste Management. Structural demolition permit signed off by the city engineering department. He opened the folder, papers fluttering in the morning breeze. "I've got permits for everything, Patricia. Every single thing your architectural committee never bothered to require." The crowd was growing. Bob Henderson stood at his fence, looking sick. The Johnstons were filming from their second-story deck. Mrs. Kellerman had brought a lawn chair and a cup of coffee, settling in like she was watching a movie. "This is insane," Patricia muttered, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're having some kind of breakdown." Marcus set down his sledgehammer and walked to the fence that separated his property from the street. Patricia backed up a step, suddenly uncertain. "You know what's insane, Patricia?" His voice was conversational, almost friendly. "Spending $80,000 on something beautiful and then having to destroy it because someone decided people like me don't belong in their neighborhood." "This isn't about race," Marcus smiled. "You're right. It's not about race. It's about power. It's about a woman who's never built anything in her life telling a structural engineer that his work doesn't meet her aesthetic standards." He gestured toward the half-destroyed pool. "You want to know something interesting about infinity pools? The engineering is incredibly precise. The water level has to be maintained within 3 millimeters for the effect to work. The pump system has to cycle exactly right. The structural foundation has to account for soil expansion, seismic activity, and thermal stress." Patricia was staring at him like he'd started speaking in tongues. "I spent 18 months planning this pool. I consulted with hydrologists, architects, and landscape designers. I studied the soil composition, the drainage patterns, the sight lines from every angle of the house." His voice remained calm, professional. And you rejected it because it didn't match your vision of what this neighborhood should look like. The rules were written by people who never imagined technology could make a pool look like natural landscape. Your precious architectural guidelines still ban satellite dishes. Patricia, when's the last time you saw a satellite dish? Jake looked up from his concrete cutting, grinning despite the destruction around him. He'd worked with Marcus on 3 commercial projects and had never seen him lose his temper. This wasn't anger, this was something colder, more methodical. Emma emerged from the house, dressed for school, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She surveyed the growing crowd with the calculating gaze she'd inherited from her father. "Dad," she said quietly, "I posted the livestream link on the school Discord. You've got about 200 viewers." Marcus nodded without surprise. He'd expected this to go viral. That was part of the plan. The real show started at 8:30, when Patricia returned with reinforcements. 3 other HOA board members, the community's lawyer, and someone Marcus didn't recognize, a thin man in an expensive suit who had the predatory look of a professional problem solver. "Mr. Chen," the lawyer called out, "I'm Robert Steinberg, representing the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. This demolition needs to stop immediately." Marcus shut off the pneumatic hammer he'd been using to break up the pool deck. The sudden silence was almost as startling as the noise had been. "On what grounds? You're creating a public nuisance. The noise, the debris, the disruption to the community, all permitted," Marcus interrupted. "Would you like to see the documentation, Steinbergs?" Jaw tightened. The HOA has the authority to regulate construction activities within the community. This demolition wasn't approved by the Architectural Committee. The Architectural Committee regulates construction, Mr. Steinberg. This is deconstruction, completely different legal framework. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened a PDF. Arizona Revised Statutes, Title 33. Chapter 16. Property owner has the right to remove structures from their own land provided they comply with safety and environmental regulations. He turned the phone toward the lawyer. "All of which I've done. You're being deliberately obstructive. I'm being thorough." Marcus's smile was razor-sharp. "Something your clients might have considered before they decided to fine me. $500 a day for building something beautiful. Mr. Chen, I'm David Walsh, Community Relations Specialist. Perhaps we can find a compromise that works for everyone." Community Relations Specialist? Marcus tasted the words like something bitter. "You mean professional intimidator?" Walsh's smile never wavered. "I help resolve disputes before they become problematic for all parties involved." Problematic. Marcus looked around at the crowd of neighbors, the cameras, the growing pile of rubble that had once been his dream. "You know what's problematic, Mr. Walsh? Selective enforcement, racial profiling disguised as community standards, bureaucratic harassment designed to drive out people who don't fit someone's narrow definition of neighborhood character." Emma was still filming her phone, capturing every word. Marcus could see her subscriber count climbing in real time on her social media dashboard. "Nobody's trying to drive anyone out," Patricia protested. "We're simply enforcing the rules equally." "Equally," Marcus laughed, and the sound made several people step back. "Jake, would you mind reading something for me?" Jake Morrison wiped, his hands on his coveralls, and pulled out his own phone. "Sure thing, boss. Go to the Willowbrook Estates HOA violation database. It's public record, available through the county assessor's office." Jake's thick fingers moved over his phone. Screen. Got it. "How many architectural violations have been issued in the past 5 years?" 147. "How many resulted in daily fines?" Jake scrolled through the data. "Looks like ... 6. "And how many of those 6 were issued to residents with Asian or Latino surnames?" The silence that followed was deafening. Jake looked up from his phone, his expression grim. "All 6. Boss Patricia's face had gone pale. That's just a coincidence, is it?" Marcus walked to his workbench and picked up a thick binder. "I spent 3 months analyzing every HOA violation in Willowbrook Estates since 2019. I'm an engineer, Patricia. I deal in data, not emotions." He opened the binder to a page covered in charts and graphs, violation types by demographic, response times to complaints, fine amounts by neighborhood section, appeal success rates correlated with surname ethnicity. The charts told a story that made everyone present deeply uncomfortable. "You want to know what I found?" White residents get warnings for architectural violations. Minorities get fines. White residents get 30-day compliance periods. Minorities get 15 days. White residents who appeal violations have a 73% success rate. Minorities who appeal have a 12% success rate. He closed the binder with a snap. So, no, Patricia, this isn't about rules. This is about a system designed to make certain people feel unwelcome in their own neighborhood. Walsh stepped forward, his professional demeanor cracking slightly. Mr. Chen, these accusations are serious. Do you have legal representation? I am legal representation. Marcus pulled,